But the only metric that actually fundamentally matters in a business is, are you profitable?
I didn't feel like we were making enough revenue, but we were just too busy and there was no capacity.
There's this moment, it was like, I'm actually needing to rethink the business, not just the model, not just the customer onboarding, the business. Talk me through that experience.
You need to be excited about what you're building. So you got to ask yourself those hypothetical questions the whole time. Am I excited? And we were like, hell no.
We should probably figure out what clients we should take on. Let's look at all the clients we have. We're the collections of clients.
How is your thinking about yourselves, like within your roles, changed before and afterwards, and as well as yourself as leaders?
I think you need to know that early on in your business what you're good at. Otherwise, you might run into a few problems.
Hello and welcome back to the Founder Files. Today I've got another round 2 episode for you, and that's the founders from Iridium Business Solutions, Simon and Peter Magner. Right, so what we get into in this episode, and the reason why I wanted them back, is they have really evolved their business since they've hit scale. I mean, they went from about 17 people after COVID, they're now sitting at 65. They made some hard and important decisions around their market and their customer, their pricing, their products, their offerings, their systemization. The problems that they're facing have just changed a lot. So obviously I wanted to unpack with them and what this journey's been like and how they're unpacking it. So obviously, not only do we get into their entire model and how they've rethought their model, including their pricing, we talk about their approach towards people, their structures, systems, how they're handling leadership, how they've split up their divisions, thinking about P&L, etc. This is a proper deep dive on this middle stage where you kind of need to take a step back, look at the internal operations of your business and think about the standardization of your platform before hitting the next scale stage. And these guys talk about it in depth so you can get all the practical views on how they're doing it for themselves. Now, if this is the kind of content that you want to be listening to and you think is very valuable to you, and you're not following the Founder Files, then you want to make sure that you're subscribed and following now so you don't miss more epic and very practical stories like this one. Right? And by clicking the subscribe button, clicking follow, it's the best way to make sure that you get all of these amazing, authentic, real stories from entrepreneurs about practically what they're doing in their business as they're scaling. It's also the best way to support the podcast and the best way to make me feel happy. So thank you for following. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for dialing in. And Simon and Peter, thank you again for being here for round 2. Let's get right into it. Welcome to the Founder Files, the podcast that's like eavesdropping on a conversation with a successful entrepreneur over a fireside chat. Join me, Cameron Coots, through this unique experience of unfiltered stories and insights from scaling founders around the globe as they share their ups, downs, and everything in between. Peter, welcome back to the Founder Files. Simon, welcome to the Founder Files for the first time. Gents, it's been over 2 years since we did episode 12. We've now done over 100 episodes between them. I know a lot's changed in your business, but that's the whole point of the conversation. We're going to share that with the audience, going to learn about scaling from your guys' perspective. So welcome to the show. Can't wait to get into it.
Thanks, Cam.
Thanks, Cam. Great to be back, and it's certainly been a while.
It has been indeed. So not to tease the audience too much, before we get into what's fundamentally changed, if someone hasn't listened to episode 12 or hasn't heard of you guys, even though most of Cape Town coming up on most of South Africa probably should have heard of you by now. If they haven't heard of Iridium, what are you guys as a business? What's your business model?
Cam, really easiest way to explain it whenever we go out to an event or some kind of function that we're at, I start off by explaining to people I'm an accountant, and then they normally walk away from the conversation and don't feel like talking any further. So I pivot a few times in that thought process, and now I tell people that we offer outsourced financial management solutions to SMEs, where we take over the finance function and we let them focus on what they really enjoy, which is running the business. And we tackle everything else relating to finance and compliance. And we're kind of their go-to person when they need to ask a question around, can I afford this? What should I do? That's the simplest way to explain it.
And my inner sales and marketing would hate to not say that we actually have 3 parts to our business. We implement systems, which is automation. We provide kind of outsourced fractional CFO services, which is our advisory space. And then Sam's already touched on that accounting side.
Awesome, guys. How long did it take you to get it that well oiled?
Clearly, it's not.
Are you talking about the pitch, Cam, or about the business model? Because both
we haven't even got to business model yet.
No, I think like anything, if anyone tells you they start out a business with everything perfectly planned out, that's a complete lie. There's nowhere we had this vision planned on day one. Day one was, I need to earn an income. I've got a few skills. Let's do something. And every year I feel we get a little bit smarter and a little bit more polished in how we do things. And if you convey something with enough confidence to your audience, they believe that you must know what you're talking about. And that's the inner salesman in me coming out, Pete.
And okay, guys, so now what I want to know is, what is the current state of the business, right? What's the scale that you're at now? I mean, obviously I can check on LinkedIn. You've got 65 associated members. I mean, I noticed LinkedIn's even been careful now in terms of saying employees or people, but let's just say 65 people, right? But just give me a sense of how would you describe the scale that you're at now outside of a people metric?
Yeah, I think outside of the people metric, probably in between kind of last few years was like hyperscale. So we're probably settling down now. We're not trying to rocket ship every single year. So it's probably more stabilizing space where we're trying to make sure that, we've always been a business that's loved quality. Now it's about just polishing everything and making sure we're able to compete at a different level.
Okay, just quickly unpack that for me. When you said hyperscale now stabilizing, how would you define the other in your context?
Yeah, sure. So back in 2020, we had about 17 people. So now from 2020 to now, we've grown rapidly in terms of our people base. And part of that was just getting more accountants in. Part of that was bringing more senior people in. So that's like hyperscale. I'm always thinking of just growing out our business so that we can deliver it at a larger scale. Our services. We also opened up another office. We opened up our formal advisory space. So it's kind of scaling on multiple fronts. And kind of creating little mini incubator departments within our business. And now we're trying to settle the main ship, making sure as a result of all the scale, we tidy up and make sure we haven't got anything that's falling through the cracks, and that it's easy to kind of take the next level of jump, which is trying to get more of myself and Simon out the business, and that can only happen if we've got everything well oiled for the mothership, which is the accounting space.
Cam, I think just to add to that slightly on Peter's side, he's right. We opened up more divisions. We hired, or we got more people to join our business that were very capable and could own a space. And I think that was a strategic play on our side of, we realized that we can only do so many things. Myself and Peter have done enough personality profiling assessments to know what our strengths are. Me and Peter are great ideators. We can think our way through any problem. But once we've thought the way through the problem, we don't actually want to solve the problem by implementing the next 10 steps. So normally in most businesses, you'll find one person is the get stuff done person and the other person is the big thinker. We unfortunately have two big thinkers. So we both love thinking and talking. If you give us a problem, we'll give you 15 solutions to the problem. We'll tell you how to solve it. We are great. And we can go into problem solve mode immediately. It's probably a thing that both of our wives don't appreciate about us, because they'll tell us a problem, we straight away want to solve the issue. I think we've realized our shortcomings in life, and we know what we need in our team. And we've been really fortunate to get some amazing people in our team who are great at getting stuff done and carrying on a course. And, I think you need to know that early on in your business what you're good at. Otherwise, you might run into a few problems.
No, 100%. I love the clarity that you've given there, and it's trust me, that resonates when I think about me and Brett. It's kind of the reason why we chose the nature of the business that we're in as well, is because we're good at doing the same too. But yeah, as you obviously building out your own operations, building your own systems, it's like you kind of need that complementary team that can really take and execute and implement and really enjoys doing that. Guys, before getting into the early days, I just want to really understand this kind of, what was the moment, right, when you were hyperscale, like it's what so many entrepreneurs go after and aim for. It's like one of the biggest things that we need to try and figure out. You've kind of achieved that, and then you're like, whoa, we need to actually take our foot off the gas. We need to change and focus. We need an internal focus. We need systems. We need structures. We need stabilization versus growth. Like, what happened? Like, what's initiated or triggered this change in perspective where it was like, let's take a step back and actually focus internally?
I don't think it was necessarily one particular moment, Cam. Both of us have been part of entrepreneurs organization, the accelerator program. So we were both in EOA for 2 to 3 years each. And I think when you're part of a community like that, you get told multiple times to think about your business. Think about what you're building, how you're building it. Have you got the right people in the right seats? And both of us have gleaned a lot of different insights from that, and that was happening at the same time as we were scaling the business. So I think we both wanted to implement a lot of things, but I think realized neither of us had a lot of time to focus on building internally. I stepped down from EOA, and that definitely gave me a lot more time to focus on it. I think we realized if we don't actually start focusing on building the right systems and structures, things are gonna run badly quickly. And when we started in COVID, at around 17 people, we decided to start the scale. And unfortunately, we're a training office. So once you put people into the first year, you need to hire again for second year and hire again for third year. So you almost set yourself up on a 3 to 5 year journey of scale. And when you open up an office, which we did in Pretoria, we decided to start off by hiring four first years, which in year 3 now, there are 12 trainees. So that office went from having no people to now 16 people in 3 years. So it's a lot of growth very quickly, but we knew that was going to happen 3 years ago. So we knew we needed to improve our processes, improve how we do things. We had a time horizon for that. So I think it's definitely not a single moment, but yeah.
Yeah, I think another thing just to think around that, Cam, is I think in business, it's kind of like science in high school. You have your hypothesis of how you think it's going to turn out, and then you start actually doing something. I think it was that like H0 and H1 logic we had, where you start out with this great idea, hire more people, things will be amazing. We put down like our BHAG and said, we're going to get to 150 people in our company, and we're going to rocket ship and take over the world, and we're going to, solve all the world's problems in finance and accounting. And as we've kind of scaled on this evolution, we've said, add more. We've looked at it and said, oh, hold on, that idea of just throwing lots of people at a problem and thinking it's going to get better, it's not quite going to get better. And I think myself and Peter had a few chats over a cup of coffee saying, if we take our current situation of being at 50 or 60 people and we now take that to 150, does that sound exciting? And I think you've got to ask yourself those questions every now and again. Am I excited about that? And both of us looked at each other and said, like, in the current setup, the way we're doing it at 150 people, I'm not excited about that business. And I think you need to be excited about what you're building. So you've got to ask yourself those hypothetical questions the whole time. Am I excited? And we were like, hell no, I don't want that. And we realized what we actually wanted is a more organized company where me and Peter aren't stuck in all the details all the time. And we wanted to use as much tech as we can to make this thing work better. And we want people around us who are really excited to be on the journey. And I think we've both worked with enough bad managers and in organizations that don't give you the freedoms you should have in the world, that we were like, we could do something that's going to treat people the way they should be and really create a nice environment, but it doesn't require us to be in the details every single day. And I think that, I don't know if that's a pivot or if that's an adjusted approach to life. We still have grand ideas. Let's not pretend we've dialed back the enthusiasm to grow something great, but maybe those ideas have just adjusted a bit.
Right. So I've already had like 2 or 3 questions in the chamber. You've now added a bunch of others. So I'm just going to keep them in this backlog when we get into the story. But just because it's so glaringly in front of me, I think there's an important moment of in anyone's entrepreneurial journey, specifically when they grow, is it's like, what does success actually mean to us? Like, what is the business that we want as entrepreneurs? What is the lifestyle that we want? And you kind of get to this point where there's this entire narrative around growth and scale for the sake of growth and scale. And so you achieve it and you're like, what do we want right now? So I think like an oversimplification of that splits entrepreneurs into like, I'd say 3 categories. There's like the solopreneur who's just themselves, like, and basically a freelancer, but or runs a business and doesn't want to hand over control anything to anyone else. We have the lifestyle business owner who's like, I want a business that's making good money, but still prioritizes me a work-life balance. So I'm going to keep operating within this business, but also want to be able to live my life at the same time. Versus the scaling entrepreneur who's like, I'm putting everything into growth. I'm banking on that moonshot. Let's go. And I'm like, I'm personally a blend of the two. Like, I'm very ambitious and I can see this going places, but also like, I mean, I'm not going to sacrifice myself in exchange for this business. So what are your thoughts? Like, what was this thinking around yourselves as entrepreneurs, your own ambitions, the business that you want? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen a similar trend when I attended a talk, and I tend to think that we were probably or are more in that kind of that scaling entrepreneur space where we're wanting to grow. I do like the idea of also the lifestyle business, but I think for me maybe it's just the term lifestyle, because I enjoy going for runs. I enjoy spending time with family. So I think there are certain things that I would want to protect if I grew a business. But I do like the idea of scaling something and testing what you can do, rather than just sitting with a handful of people and ticking along. That I would find boring. I like the idea of innovating and coming up with different things. So maybe if I had like 25 small businesses that I could do different things all the time, I'd probably do that. But yeah, that's just me.
Cam, haven't you seen that's why we have different divisions in our company? We don't just have one division. We have automation, advisory, accounting, and we've also done some side consulting in other areas. So there's at least 4 kind of separately identifiable business operations with 2 geographic locations, 3 or 4 different business partners, and we engage with numerous software vendors to kind of see how we can work better with them and how we can operate our business more effectively. So I think there's always an idea of growth and scale and change, to Peter's point. And I think one thing that we both realize is as much as we want to do things better and we want to think through things, we're very happy to throw away an idea if we realize it's bad. And I think some founders think that it's my idea, like, I can't say things negative about it because that's a personal attack on my great ideas. We realize ideas are easy to come up with. The guys who want to hold back the ideas and not share them, they're being silly, because ideas only really become valuable when you start playing around with them, much like you play around with a bit of clay or something. So when you play around with something, you can shape it differently, and often what we like to do is throw out an idea really fresh, like we just had it yesterday, and throw it at people. And then you see how they respond to it. And I think that's a great way to almost reform that idea into something that's more valuable or works better. But we're also happy that at the end of the week, if we've got really bad feedback from the people we've spoken to, everyone's like, that is terrible. Like, what are you thinking about? We're happy just to put it in the back pocket and go, that was probably never supposed to come out. We just pulled it out quickly, and we're not going to take offense that it didn't work, and we'll just go for the next thing. So I don't know if that's stubbornness or determination, but I think that never say die attitude is probably what makes entrepreneurs successful in the long run, because they don't take it personally. And by the time they get 2 months down the line, they've forgotten about those 10 bad ideas. much like in a round of golf, Cam. I've started playing more golf this year, and I realize if you feel bad after your tee shot on the first, by the time you get to the fourth or fifth hole, you can't be thinking about what happened on the first. You got to be thinking, how am I going to get a par or a birdie on the next hole? So it's a bit of a nice analogy for life as an entrepreneur.
100%. On that note, I actually just broke 99 last week, and so I've already gone to my golf as well, so we must play around sometime.
Nice, definitely.
Okay, guys, so obviously you've made it clear to me that you are not shy of complexity, you're not shy of ideas, you're not shy of problems. You're just like me, but also you're just like many other entrepreneurs out there. But I think just to avoid the kind of tease in the story, let's go back to the founding story, right? I mean, it's obviously two brothers starting a business. Sometimes that can get quite tricky, starting a business with a family. Sometimes it works perfectly, but also even genetically, like you said, there's a similar, you might have two different personalities and structures, but both of you are ideators at the end of the day. But talk me back to the original founding of the story, pre-COVID, pre-getting to 17 people, pre-getting to 65. How was this business originally started and why?
Cool. I mean, I probably should take that since I started the business. So I think back in 2013, Cam, I was sitting at an audit firm while I was working on an audit, and I realized that I don't really like this idea of working for someone else. I'm not a standard accountant or auditor who avoids risk. I actually like to take a bit of risk in life, and I'm kind of okay to back myself a little bit and go for it. So I just logged into CIPC's website back in 2013. It must have been about April or May. I clicked a few buttons, I filled out a form, and I registered a company. So that was early June. It ended up being registered, and I registered a company.
What was the first name, out of curiosity?
Yeah,
what was it registered as?
It was Iridium Business Solutions.
Okay.
We haven't legally changed that since. If anything, we've just dropped business solutions off our marketing and branding and kind of corporate identity. Maybe because it sounds more like an IT business than a computer, than a accounting services business. But yeah, the name's never changed. That was in June 2013, and shortly thereafter, I resigned from my job. So I went to my wife of 2 and a bit years, and I said, "Hey, I've registered a company. I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to start my own thing." And she said, "Well, if this doesn't work out, you're going to have to get a real job." That was 12 and a bit years ago, and I've managed to make it into a real job, and I've managed to earn an income. And it's been a journey since then. So that's kind of where it started. I think it was about a year or so after starting. Peter was wrapping up or getting close to the end of his articles as a CA. And he did a bit of work with me during the holidays. I think it was December, or I think it was a mid-year or end of the year. I think he was just doing a few little things to check it out. And then Peter was going to go off and get a job at an audit firm, like every good accountant. And he got a job, and that lasted, was it 3 months, Peter, or 2.5 months?
No, it was 2 months. I was a
2 months.
Technical manager. Yep, technical manager at an audit firm. It was the brand new role in that business, so they hadn't quite figured out what it meant as a role. It sounded amazing. They told me all this stuff that I'm going to get to do. I'm going to get to train their training staff, and kind of a 7 weeks in, I realized I was just doing a bunch of internal audit work, and that's not really fun. I'm not somebody who loves admin, and internal audit's just like a whole dump of admin. So I walked into the audit partner's office and said, "Look, you sold me on this. It's completely different. So this is not ready for me. I get that you need a internal audit focus person, but that's not me." And she said, "Not a problem. Do you want to finish tomorrow?" I said, "Sure. I'm happy with that." And I said, "Simon, I'm a free agent now, so I'm happy to come do some bookkeeping and learn how to do all things SaaS. Because when you're an auditor, you learn nothing about practical accounting. So I might have been a chartered accountant, but I knew absolutely nothing about actually running the finances of a business. and so that was kind of my new start to my my learning was just joining up with Simon and doing kind of box jobs, where you get a bunch of files and a bunch of stuff to do for a client who's never done anything in their accounting.
So I wanted to skip a couple of steps ahead because I mean we could do an entire podcast just on the founding story. It's always a fun part in any entrepreneur's journey, and it's also probably the most existential one. So it's the one founders love talking about the most. But just to skip a couple steps ahead is like obviously you guys have joined forces now. PD have joined the business. I remember from the original story there was a conversation that you guys had around a dinner table, maybe a lunch table in one of your houses, and it's like it's definitely the right call. But let's jump a couple steps ahead from being these accountants that can really help businesses to now we've got a model for the business, right? What was that first model that you figured out that initiated growth?
It was probably realizing that we wanted to package services into a bundle for clients, and figure out how do we offer accounting services differently in the market, which traditionally accountants were charged by the hour and not really tell anyone what it's going to be because they don't know, because they charge by the hour, and also not really have a proper contract in place. Most old school accountants actually haven't got a formal retainer contract where they tell you what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. So I think we came in and said, let's make sure we clear on what we're offering, because that's what audit firms do. They go, here's your contract, and be clear on how much we're charging. Even if we don't really know how much we should be charging, we're going to tell you a number and we're going to stick to it. And that's kind of what we did. We said, Cam, we're going to charge you $3,000 a month. And Cam was very happy with that. And we signed up a whole lot more Cams, and then we built and realized after a while, maybe we undercharged, maybe we shouldn't have taken this client on. And we started learning once we actually had a bunch of clients and under our belts. I clearly remember like a whiteboard with Simon saying, we should probably figure out what our clients, what clients we should take on. Let's like look at all the clients we have, we're the collections of clients, and figured out that we had clients in like 6 core spaces and then a bunch of fringe clients. And actually through that, we realized...
I thought you said French for a second. Clients. You said French. That's why I chuckled. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. No, it was like, we would do work for like a random little gym or a travel company, and we realized actually, let's adjust our model to offer services for creatives, retail, e-commerce, kind of tech businesses, manufacturers, and professional services. So we kind of honed in on the industries, and that was probably the first. The next kind of evolution was like, who is our ideal client base?
I think, Cam, something else that we probably did in those earlier to mid years, which is different to the way that people had been doing things prior to that, is typically accountants were very much an annual service that most people saw. So once a year you spoke to your accountant and they would put together your financial statement and your tax return, and they'd make SARS go away. That was kind of their main function. And maybe you needed a overdraft from the bank. So you needed some signed off documents that the bank would then give you another R500,000 to, float your business for the rest of the year. And the people that were doing the bookkeeping work, which is the day-to-day processing and generating management accounts, that was predominantly done by a division in an accounting firm. And it was normally the lowest skilled people in the company. So it was people who were they could have been the receptionist or the administrators. Generally, they weren't qualified to any high level. They definitely didn't have degrees in accounting or professional designations. And they were just doing the best they could, kept things going. And there wasn't a sense of time urgency to get those numbers up to date. It was very much like that old school box drop idea where a box arrived at the front door of an accounting firm at the second week of the next month with all the paperwork from last month, and someone then typed away for the next 3 weeks to get all that data in, just in time for the SARS deadline to file their VAT return. So that was the thought process, and there was no value in anything else. And all the invoices that you as a business owner sent out were sent out based on an Excel template or a Word template, or if you're a digital marketing person, you probably had one of the Adobe Illustrator products or something to that effect, where you had designed a template and you just changed the numbers every month to issue invoices. So it was very rudimentary in how you did it, and you never knew who owed you money. And the only way you knew what people hadn't paid you was you had folders on your desktop on your computer, and there was the paid folder and the not paid folder, and you'd move invoices between the two to know. So that was kind of how accounting was done for SMEs. And I think the fundamental shift from how it was to how it is now is digital first. Everything's online. If I'm working on that product and you're the business owner, you and me see the same information. You're raising your invoice to your customers in the same data that I'm now actually matching off payments and making sure everything ties up. So that single source of truth became like a norm. And this idea of using as many great tech products that you could was also not a thing accountants got, because most accountants are not techies as well. So me and Peter were kind of odd accountants because we like technology and we could understand finance and accounting. And normally that didn't kind of blend together very well. Whereas we were very excited to talk to any new tech product that came out and understand what problems they could solve and how we could use it in our business to do our things better. So that was definitely a pivot. Right now, any company popping up is going tech first, digital, online, charging you a monthly retainer. A lot of the things that we kind of, I'm not going to say we pioneered, but we were like one of the early adopters in this country of those type of thought processes. Now anyone out there is going, yeah, I do this, this, and this, and they'll name the same products that we do, and people actually in our early days were copying our websites, because we even went and looked at people's websites and we're like, you've made the same like typos we've made. I can see what you're using there.
And literally copy paste.
We literally copy paste, but it was so early on, and some of the early adopters, I remember having phone calls with guys and they were like, Simon, I'm so effed off right now. I've just gone on the T's and C's and my business name is in that oak's T's and C's on his website. He didn't even have clearly ChatGPT was not around at that stage in the game. Otherwise, it would have fixed that problem for him. But it was literally at that point, and this was like a leading accounting firm. He's like, I'm pissed off. I'm like, but no, that's the greatest form of flattery. You're doing such a great job that everyone wants to copy you. And me and Peter were fine with that because we actually said, you know what, ideas are worth nothing. If I tell you something today and you spend 6 months building out exactly what I've done, I guarantee you, much like a ship sailing in the sea, in 6 months' time, we're going to be at a very different destination than where we were 6 months ago. And you copying us 6 months ago doesn't help you. And it's been an interesting journey seeing how things adapt and change, and not having this FOMO that we better go faster. Otherwise, we're going to lose out and, someone's going to overtake us.
I mean, Simon, like you said, there's no such better free marketing you can probably get than a disgruntled client at a competitor seeing their T's and C's with your name on it and they know that they copied it from you. It's like, I don't have to put any effort into you switching over to me. Now I just need to onboard you. Thank you, which is fantastic. Doesn't happen very often, but it's a really good sign. I think also what you highlighted about that change is that I'd like to pause here for a moment to talk about why it is that we run the Founder Files in the first place, why we've done over 100 episodes and why we have no intention of stopping anytime soon, and how it is that we go about actually funding this so consistently. And to start off with, the purpose of the Founder Files is to give established entrepreneurs practical stories and insights from people that have been there before, so you can avoid years of trial and error in scaling your own business. And the reason why this is so important to us is it relates very directly to what the purpose of Metavolve is, which is the entity that funds the Founder Files in the first place. And that is to accelerate the time it takes for entrepreneurs to build businesses that are able to thrive without them. Practically what that looks like is our mission statement, to ensure that as many founders as possible can take a holiday where they actually switch off whilst their business keeps growing. And the reason why this mission is so important to us is because as many entrepreneurs, we built these businesses to potentially work less, right? Have a sense of freedom, but we found ourselves working harder than ever. And we thought when we conquered these original problems around survivability and getting to product market fit, we then achieved growth. And then the nature of the problems that we have now fundamentally changed. And we found ourselves working harder than ever, right? We're working longer hours, we're making harder decisions, people are coming to us, we're having to put out fires, and it can feel so intense, and we're constantly getting pulled back into operations because of the fundamental reason that no one knows our business like we do. And this is where Metavolve comes in. We use strategy as the process to really download all of your knowledge, all your thinking about your business, about your market, about your product into your management team so that they can be empowered to execute while you focus on growth or frankly doing what it is that you want with your time. So if you want to hear more about what Metavolve does and how Metavolve can help you attain a new level of freedom in your scale up, then click on the link in the description below and let's have a chat and a curiosity call to see how I can share some of the insights I've learned from working with and interviewing over 200 business owners in the past 3 and a bit years. But that's it from me for now. Let's get back to the episode. At this time where technology was really coming into the accounting space, we're seeing it in a lot of other domains now, specifically with AI, but I think accounting is one of the first that really got disrupted by digital software and technology, was the fact that it made bookkeepers redundant, which you guys were fine with. I don't want to be auditors, I don't want to be bookkeepers. But it accelerated the ability for CAs to provide value to business owners because of that transparency of information and data, which I think is just like a moment in the world of really just unlocking what you guys wanted to do for businesses. So that was like the timing shift. I think you've also kind of highlighted a couple steps along there is like this first pointer on the model of like, who's this actually for, right? Who are we good at servicing? Who can we use the same language with? Where do we see the same problems? Where do we understand like the management account of these businesses and knowing what good looks like, what's similar, so we can have like these structured conversations with these people so that they feel like they're getting similar service. So we're putting these pieces together, really seeing how the business models evolved. But one thing that you implicitly mentioned a bit earlier, but I mean, I'm going to say this like I'm pretending like I don't know this already, but I do know this. But you mentioned earlier around having the first years and then going up to the third year. You have the example of the Pretoria office going from, 4+1 in terms of the GM there, getting up to, like you said, 16 now. Talk to me about the operational side of the business model. Like you've got, so just to summarize my thinking, so I'm not just going on one thought track. Sorry, audience. Sorry, Simon. Sorry, Peter. You've structured now different industries, right? You've got a pricing model that's based more in terms of packages and bundles than it is according to per hour. You've got digital first in terms of what you're able to do. And then now operationally, internally, you've got young talent that you are training office building people out. Give me more detail there. Give me more understanding around how is it that you actually deliver on these value propositions, on this tech, on these bundles.
Yeah. I think we stumbled into the training office a while back off the back of one of our trainees saying they wanted to be a SEMA trained professional, and realized that actually it was a nice opportunity to get other people like her into the business. So we actually didn't really have a well structured machine. We wanted more accountants in the beginning. It was Simon and myself and more accountants. And then we realized this concept of a training office and started hiring trainees into that space. And the SEMA spaces, you need first years, second years, third years. And once they've finished their 3 years, they qualify as a kind of a qualified professional, a SEMA professional. And with that, we realized, okay, well, we don't want to be the people constantly overseeing them, and layered in some managers and broke those out into kind of teams. We initially had 2 teams with kind of 6 trainees maximum each. And then we kind of evolved that to now having, I think it's, 7 teams across our 2 locations. And with that, we realized as you scale, you need more senior talents. I don't want to sign off every set of financials and review every single tax return, and neither does Simon. So we needed to hire in a qualified technical person who can oversee those spaces. We also realized as we scaled, our teams needed to focus on execution, which was the actual thing that we promised our clients. And therefore we said, instead of getting
but you guys don't like doing
our training. Yeah, agreed. But it was more like we would initially get a client, it would be a complete mess. There'd be 3-year catch up, 5 sets of financials, and a whole lot of other things. And we go, cool team, you go handle that amongst all the other work. I realized that didn't quite work. It broke them at times. So we split out and created a onboarding department where we push a client through onboarding, make sure things are dealt with first before handing across their client, a team member. So we started building out, and that department's now a team of 5. And Simon, myself, and 1 or 2 other people were the system migrators. We would implement all the systems for clients, and we'd go out and do all the consulting and do some really interesting big projects. Realized that when as we've scaled, we no longer were able to do those. So we've now got a full team that handle migrations and technical projects. So I think what we realized as a small business, we could handle a lot of functions ourselves. As we've scaled the business, we've needed to separate out, think clearly what are stumbling blocks in our organization and where we need additional focus, and craft key roles for those spaces, so that it takes away from either the team or ourselves, and frees up to actually focus on what we want to do and what we're supposed to be doing.
Pete, maybe something that's worthwhile mentioning is that along the way, we didn't have like a rugby team where we knew which positions there were going to be in the end, and we only had the forwards and then we made the back line. We didn't really know what this was going to look like, so I think most business owners may get the delusion that you're supposed to have a perfect map on day one. We definitely didn't have that. And in fact, a lot of our early people that joined our team, and also along the way, Peter just spoke about the onboarding team. We got that idea from listening to people overseas in articles and in podcasts and in kind of how they were reforming businesses. We decided we liked that idea. And then we met with someone who was a nice person who had some great skills. And we weren't actually hiring for a specific role. We met with a person. We said, we like this person. We could see them adding value in our space. How can we form a role that's going to align to their skill set? And then we kind of evolved from there, which I think in the early days is a great way to build a business, because you need people who you can trust, you can work with, that are, in a similar vein to how you want to operate. And you can use their skills to further what you're doing. But also it's a strange conversation to have with someone where you kind of go, hey, Cameron, I like you. You're a nice person. I can see what you're good at. Let's try and find a role that's going to work where you can join us, because we know you're going to add value somewhere.
Yeah, no, I think that, as you said, that definitely evolves. I think that's the difference between doing early stage and scale stage is it's now like we get Swiss Army knives, right? So it's like, what is it that you can bring to the table? What can you bring to the culture? Versus now it's like, I've got a very clear job description and role, and I know how to predict performance in this, and I need specialists now. So it's definitely a different game. And you've highlighted the transition. And Peter, I love the fact that you shared that story of the onboarding piece, because often we will do it intuitively, but really, if you break it down, what's this customer journey, and that the customer goes from like even before knowing about you through your business, and where those bottlenecks are in terms of fixing that and fixing value. But also one thing just to share with the audience that they might not know behind the scenes is also part of the model of where it was the focus on young talent originally. It was because you're positioning package prices, right, according for anyone to be able to get. So how is it that your business becomes profitable is really ensuring that your cost base is managed as far as possible. Now that obviously hits a difficult point when your value proposition is quality, which means that the way that you can get away with that is shrinking your own profits in terms of what is that you can take. Is like, if I'm guaranteeing profit quality to you, but I need to like also manage low cost at the same time, you're just squeezing yourself out of the game. Which also brings me back to why I was so excited to have you guys in this conversation. Is it came this point, right, where it's like we're now changing because we're scaling. We've validated the core model, right? This advisory, automation, accounting is working. You've got these clear functions. You've got these services. You've got these teams. You're able to have these management structures that you don't have to run. You don't have to do the execution and doing the tax for all your clients as well. You've got the teams to handle that as well. But now there's this really there's this moment. It's like I'm actually needing to rethink the business, not just the model, not just the customer onboarding, the business. Talk me through that experience.
Yeah. That feels like a long experience. I think we as you scale, things fundamentally change. You can't price the same as you used to. You can't just do things quickly and change a system here and there because you want to. There's a lot of things that you when you're small you can do that you can come back from quickly. Whereas when you're a lot larger, it's a lot more kind of a slow moving ship, and you also need to be a lot more careful of certain things, because it's easy to bloat out your expenses, and walk away with a very average looking end of year profit / loss. So I think because Simon and I are both accountants, you would think that we're constantly thinking of the numbers and tweaking them, but I think we also have 100 other things that we need to do. So I think we reflect on the business relatively often, and think that we looked at it a couple of years ago and realized we had built out a great looking ship, but not a super profitable ship. But we had kind of made that decision because we wanted to build structure and build out middle management and make sure this thing was able to work without us as much as possible. And so I think a couple of years ago we didn't actually look at everything by divisions. There was no divisional profits. It was just like, it is a lump of income and a lump of expenses. And we kind of knew that the automation division made this amount of sales, and advisory made this, and accounting made this, but we hadn't gone and really focused in on the nitty gritty of what each division was doing, and from a profitability perspective. And I think when we did that deep dive, we realized we needed to make sure that we tightened things up. We needed to make sure that we changed our pricing model, and that was also partly because the team just felt like they were just too busy. Everyone was too busy. Yet I didn't feel like we were making enough revenue, but we were just too busy, and there was no capacity, and it just felt like we couldn't do anything. So I think I'll pause there and give Simon an opportunity to pick it up.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I think that thought process of Peter's, of scaling and growing and always wanting to do it better, because I think that's another thing that's built into both of our kind of ethoses. I love seeing things improve, and I like to do it a little bit better than last month, and a little tweak and a little tweak. And we're happy not to make massive changes, but we always want to see progress and growth. So the idea to put to get Peter a PA, or to get Peter a full-time executive assistant, and to get another administrator on the ground, and an HR person, and this, and adding people in, those are all people doing functions in the organization that aren't adding to your bottom line. But they fulfill the other objective of, I like to do things that actually are great results, that everyone's happy with. It looks nice from the outside. I don't think I could ever run a corner cafe that looks like it's kind of a bomb shelter, that just kind of stays afloat by I don't know what, and the generator in the back's like a hand pump with petrol, so it's, some people are very happy to run a business like that, where they invest no money in the aesthetics and the way that it presents, but all they focus on is just money at the bottom line. And me and Peter, I think, both wanted to build something that looks nice, that works well, that delivers a great result, and we invest money in our people, and they don't always see it, but there's a lot of investment going on in the background. How do we make this better? How do I give you great coffee? How do I make it a nice environment? And all those things come at a bottom line cost, So I suppose that the point we got to now is, have we done enough of that nice stuff, that we're happy with what we're building? How do we now, refine this a bit and tidy up a few little pieces to make sure that we're super focused on, to be honest, the fundamental that every business owner should be asking, Cam, is, are we making money? And business is not charity. Business is about profit. So you can tell me any metric in the world you want, but the only metric that actually fundamentally matters in a business is, are you profitable?
Okay, so you've highlighted this moment where the profitability is there, and what I'm picturing metaphorically is this kind of moment where you're moving and you're busy and you're fast, but then you take a step back. It's like, we're not really going anywhere, right? And it's just because things are hectic in operations. And like what you've highlighted is two solves. It's like, one, we need to ensure that the profitability of our business model is sorted out. But at the same time, as like there's this point in scale stage that wasn't there before, is one of the most important unlocks is removing yourselves as the bottlenecks in the business. It's why you're spending money on administrators, on EAs, on HR managers. Is about the fact that where's the best return on my time and attention as the founder that understands this really intimately as the CEO, the MD, director, whatever it is that's at the top there. Is it's like no one knows this business like me. No one has the authority to make the decisions that I do. So for me, spending time on certain things, there's a better return on my time and attention. And like that's also highlighting the shift that you guys have made. So I think maybe just jumping a couple steps. One thing that I want to know is, how is your thinking about yourselves, like within your roles, changed before and afterwards, and as well as yourself as leaders?
So I think what I've realized over the last few years, when we didn't have all the people around, there was this need for me to jump in on every conversation and be part of everything. And my core role, according to my title, is sales and marketing. I used to approve all the marketing and set all the sales calls, and be in 5 different other calls at the same time, because I need to be part of the operations and part of everything else. So what I've realized is, I do kind of calendar reflections or audits on my calendar, and I was just too busy all the time, and my team were just never able to get hold of me because I was in meetings most of the day. But I was doing stuff that was important, but at the same time, they were wanting me and my time, and I wasn't able to give it to them. So I think a lot of what I've realized is, I don't need to be involved in everything if I've got the right people that are performing functions. And I think that's probably been the important thing for me, is actually making sure we have clear functions to give to people that they can run with them and own them, and as much as possible step away from them so that they can own it. I still like engaging with people in those spaces, but yeah.
So Simon, before you give your response, because I know you want to add to this, but like you went through 4 steps there that you've simplified, and I really want to kind of conceptualize now, that I see so many entrepreneurs go through but just haven't really highlighted. It's and it's all mindset related. And it's like the first one is about the fact that it's like, I need to be involved in everything because no one could do what I can do. Then there's the second step of realizing, oh, I don't have to be involved in everything, and I shouldn't be involved in everything. And there's a realization why that comes is the fact that it's like there's this demand on your time. Other people want to see you. There's other things that need to happen. But then there's a realization of, I need good people that I can hand this over to in order to be able to comfortably get my time back. And then there's the step 4 is like, okay, well, not only about the hiring, but in order to get those good people, I need to make sure it's very clear what function I'm handing over to them so they can take it and run. And a lot of people like struggle with each step of that. And it's like, you kind of need all in one. The sooner you have all 4 of those in your mindset together, the faster you get through that. And I just wanted to take a step to highlight that, because you gave a practical example, and it's such an important part towards real delegation of proper responsibility.
Yeah. I think the part of that camp was actually writing down what you need help with, and actually going, here's all the stuff that take my time, and can I put a person into all of that, or is there enough in 1 or 2 of those things that somebody can actually just fully own? And initially, I had a executive assistant, and she just did a whole lot of stuff. And then we realized actually there was enough of like 2 things that she could own those two things across the entire organization. And yeah, a little part of what we did last year was actually look at all our admin team and see how we can give them specific functions rather than doing everything across the board, because they were all doing the very similar things, but all doing very similar things together. We said, no, you can do that thing completely, you can do the other thing completely, and we split out their roles to be a lot more focused, which was a big win for our admin team as a whole. So I think we constantly thinking of, like Simon said, how can we do things better? Even with the people that we originally hired and said, that's your kind of role, we went, no, I think this is your role now. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I think you made some great points there, Cam. Thanks for making it more succinct and kind of putting it down that kind of analogy of I'm great at everything, but I can't do everything, and then evolving that thought process out. I think the other thing that we also made the mistake at the start is we hired some really amazing people at the start of our business journey. And they were probably unicorns. They could do a lot of amazing things really well. And I think me and Peter also could do a lot of things and solve a lot of problems. And I think we built our initial part of our business under the assumption that everyone out there that we were going to hire as we were going to scale our business was going to have these multifaceted skill sets that could just jump in and do everything. So we started out assuming that we would be hiring a whole lot of jacks of all trade. Those people who are one day going to be the CFOs of organizations who could just do everything. I could give you all your tax returns, all your processing, your financial statements. You could walk in, have a meeting, and advise a client on how to scale and grow, and I think after a while we realized that was a pretty unfair expectation that everyone's going to have that, wide skill set. And I think that's when the kind of the fight of, yes, we need departments kind of stopped. Because I think initially we were like, we don't need departments. Who needs a tax department and a financial statement team and a this and a this? Everyone can just do everything. And that is not the right answer. And I think probably the scaling journey in organizations is to the specialization point where you realize you need to get the best people doing the best things. And as much as me and Peter enjoy 100 different things to do in a week, most people aren't going to succeed in doing 100 different things in a week. They need that focus. They need that structure. And they need to be given guidance on how we're going to achieve success in that role. And I think we currently in that stage where we're going, how do we get the best for everyone, and how do we define that in the best way possible, but still allow people to have the flexibility that they can add their own touch to what they're doing.
Love it. Guys, I want to spend some time on this now, but I want to ask the question how. And I think maybe just skip a couple of steps. How are you thinking about this now? So in terms of putting in structures, putting in functions, handing over to someone properly, making sure there's specialization, tell me about what are you currently redesigning or restructuring your business, and how are you thinking about it?
So I think we've gone through the thought process of what roles are fundamental in our business and who do we have to have in roles that are going to achieve and close out functions.
Okay, answer that for me first.
Yeah. So we've gone through it and we've unpacked the thought process of what do we have to have? What are the non-debatables? What is the level of that person? Because we've often vacillated between, can we have a junior person doing this function? Do we need a more senior person? And in our current space, we've realized that we need a really competent tax person. We need a really competent person to oversee financial statements, because every company has to have financial statements done.
That's a high stakes thing.
We managed to get a great person to carry both those roles. And we also realized we couldn't get a junior person. We needed someone with a bit of work experience that could really come in. And that's a scary process in any business where you realize you actually have to pay for the right level of person. You can't just get it on the cheap every time. You actually need to pay a good salary for a good team member. And then the next thing we've been grappling with, which we haven't really solved yet, is an operational person. We really need someone in our organization right now who can handle all the stuff that me and Peter are not great at doing, but this person is really good at just putting things into order and structure and create that kind of logic that will work, and that has that desire to constantly re-evolve that structure and that framework. And that probably talks to SOPs as well, Cam. Like me and Peter can tell you what the SOP should be, but there's almost something inside us that wants to rebel against the idea to write it down. I don't know what it is, but I find it very hard to do.
I was going to say, speak to yourself, Simon.
I find it hard, Pete. Let's be fair.
So guys, just on that, I mean, this is where Brett's the better person to chat to, because I will be able to explain this at a conceptual point and I might even butcher it, but he's really narrowed down the difference between what a chief operating officer is and a chief operations officer is. And that's the highlighting in terms of what is it that you guys might need. And just to take a step back into the abstract for a second, how do we look at the value chain of a company, right? There's really innovation functions at the top and operational functions at the bottom. Right. And what that looks like is, for example, at an innovation function at the top is research and development, and that leads operationally into production. Right. So if it's like a product business and manufacturing, it'll be R&D and then that. Then you've got marketing at strategic or innovation, and then you've got sales at operational. You've got human resource development, management, leadership at the top, and then you've got HR personnel or compliance or procedural HR, as I call it, at the bottom. And then, as you guys know best, you've got finance and then accounting. And the difference between a chief operating officer and a chief operations officer is the chief operating officer handles that integration of that top layer moving down into the bottom one. So when we're talking about what is it that we're pushing from R&D into production, what are we committing in terms of new value propositions, new markets that we're going after that we're going to go into sales, right? What are we changing in terms of like the people that we're going to develop, and how's that going to shift how we're going to go about hiring? Right. And then also, what is it that we're going to be allocating from our financial strategy, and how's that going to go into our own accounting? Right. That transition as a chief operating officer versus a chief operations officer is someone that's overlooking how are we making sure that we're handling our sales well, that we are handling our production well, handling our accounting well, and handling our personnel well. That's a very different kind of layer of thinking. That's my abstract explanation of it. Do you want some more thinking through, including the audience? Chat to my business partner, Brett Matheson, find him on LinkedIn. But I found that extremely insightful, and he dropped it off. Like, we had a call and he mentioned, oh, I've had this insight. And I was like, that's a game-changing insight, but cool.
Yeah, that's great. Hey?
I like that. I mean, I think what we've realized in our business is there's a lot of stuff that sucks our time. And as we've scaled, you get more client queries and more team queries relating to the kind of the core of what we do, which is the accounting space. And the more we get sucked into what should I say to a client, or how do I deal with this? What about those little conversations? And have we done our payroll? Have we done this? Have we, are we on time here? Did we deliver this? It's all which is probably, that's why we think it's more operations manager. It's more actually taking away those little conversations from us, because if Simon or I are needing to deal with more strategic work, getting sucked into those little conversations, it's not a 5-minute conversation. Ends up being maybe a 5-minute here plus a meeting with a client plus this plus that sucks us away from actually focusing on growing the business sustainably and continuing to build this kind of mothership that we're trying to build. And we can solve all these problems, but when there are too many that happen throughout a week, it breaks our concentration and breaks our focus away from what we really should be doing. So we originally, we maybe even thought it would be called like a head of accounting. Actually, somebody that oversees, and it just feels like you're building a pyramid of more and more people up top to oversee everyone below. But that's kind of what it needs to be, I think.
Well, another thing the audience doesn't know, and is that Iridium, Simon and Peter, actually used to be a client of Metavolve before we pivoted and evolved ourselves into just doing strategy. Specifically, we're helping them on psychometrics. And I just love the fact that you bring up head of accounting, because it's something that we were still looking at back then. And I really want to spend more time talking about this topic now, because whether it's GM, head of operations, COO, whatever we want to define it, it's always this, like, at scale stage, such a hard thing to not only define but also replace, but is an absolute game changer when people get right. So I really want to spend a bit more time unpacking how you're thinking about it, what you're struggling with in order to do so.
Yeah, something that came on that point there, like before, just tailing off the end of Peter's thought was, I think myself and Peter both realized that if a problem comes up during the week, whether it's a production operational thing or a structural innovative kind of thing needs to be rethought, we can solve those problems because we've been in this business long enough. We know how the problems work. We know how the potential solutions come about. And I think what we've grappled with at the moment that we haven't quite solved it yet is we need to find, how do we define what we want from someone really well, and what the responsibilities of that person are, and like a framework that we want them to operate in that's going to make our life easier, and almost box it off and say, that's what we need you to do. Like, and this is the rules of the game and how we want you to do that. Because I can't have someone knocking on my door every day for an hour to discuss 25 points. And I need to empower that person with the right ethos and framework to then go ahead and do it. And I think we often internally think about, like, what is our way of doing it? And it can't be Peter's way of doing it or Simon's way of doing it. It needs to be our collective kind of approach to how we should tackle those kind of problems. And whether it's us putting it into like a codifying it, or, rulifying wherever that thought process is, like I think in today's AI space, I almost feel like I want an AI bot that if someone asks a question, it'll give back the answer that myself or Peter would probably give, because generally speaking, on most topics, we'd give the same kind of answer. We will deviate because we're different people, but the logic should be similarly based. And I think all we need to do to move forward effectively is to kind of codify a bit better what we need. And then it's easier for someone out there then to go, oh, I get that. Because if I don't explain it well enough, it's hard for someone else to kind of get what I want them, or what I think we need them to tackle. And then we want to let them go and run with it, because it's not helpful having someone knocking on your door all the time.
Well, 100%. What I just want to know on that is, like, because I'm now a dog with a bone on this topic, is compared to any other function, responsibility, or role you've handed over, what makes this one different?
So I want to backtrack, because what Simon's described is not the operations roles. What Simon's described actually is making sure every single function that we have, predominantly our accounting space, knows exactly what their role is. Because what we realized over the last while is we thought somebody was doing it in a certain way. And then when we tested it across a number of versions of that, we thought people knew how to do payroll. We thought we had a clear process, because of course we had a clear process. We told them.
I know how to do it backwards, and I know how I want it done. I assume you know how to do it too.
Totally. And like we thought we've done training on this thing. But what we realized is a lot of what's in the early stages of when you're building a business is you just verbally communicate a lot of things, and you assume that then it becomes the SOP and the standard. And if it's not checked, well, it's always the standard until it's not checked. And we've realized that you can put lots of people around the process, and they can all assume that the process was what they thought they interpreted. And till Simon and I read and look and go, but that's not what we agreed 3 years ago. Why are people doing it that way? So what we've realized
and the answer is, my senior told me, Pete, but then I go and chat to the person and say, why are you emailing, Cameron's company, their pay slips with their payroll report? And they go, no, but Mike told me that's what we need to do. And I go to Mike, why do you do that? No, Jackie said that's how we're supposed to do it. And I realized that someone somewhere back in the thought process came up with an idea that they liked, and they've just told everyone ever since that's what they're going to do. It's not written in any of our document flows or in any of our processes. They've just made it up. And now that's become the way that people do it. And I said to Peter, but that's not what we agreed. I want to change that. And then we realized that in order to change something, it doesn't impact 5 people. it now impacts 35 people or 40 people. So now I'm like, oh, flip, man, we're a corporate. Now I've got to go and issue version 3.2.7 of the payroll guidelines. Maybe I need to go into Loom and record a video, and then I probably need to get AI to rewrite it. And then I'm like, this is quite a bit of work. Like this feels like something I should be giving to my, I don't know what role, but someone who can tackle it, because you can't just kick a few things and say, do it. And then me and Peter have a 10-minute chat about this and go, oh, but there's a new function in the payroll tool. If you go in the back end of settings, you can apply a code to any report that gets sent out of that system, which locks it in and it gives a higher grade of security. That sounds great. I want to do that. And Peter's like, cool. Let's just send a message on Slack and tell people to do it. And I'm like, we can't do that because then people aren't going to remember that. So now you see the ideation process of changing internal structures and how we do things. We need to really formalize what we're doing and be very clear, and then we get a phone call from another party who goes, hey guys, I like your business. I like what you're doing. Yeah, I'm actually interested in investing. And then we go, well, flip, what are people buying if they invest in our business? They're buying structure and they're buying idea and logic and execution. And me and Peter are like, well, that's all. A lot of that's in our heads. No, they're not going to buy us. So I guess we better be better at structuring this out. So there's something, of substance.
What you're highlighting there is a pain point that I see with so many scaling founders all the time. And that's the fact that no one knows my business like me. No one knows our products like me. No one knows our customer like me. And no one knows the experience that I want to give like me. That's just a fact of entrepreneurship, right? We can build the SOPs, do the processes, do the clarity, all the onboarding as much as we like. It's like we're going to get better at that, but no one's ever going to know it like me. That's just the reality. But there's this challenge that we face around the fact that it's like, I've got these ideas that are simple solves in process, but are not complex because I need to get everyone else to do it. And it's like at a magnitude of 30, right? And that's where the complication kind of comes in. So before even talking about that implementation side, there's a bottleneck and challenge here around, it's like, okay, some things I just got to let burn, or some ideas I just can't really run with. How do you guys handle this at your level? How do you handle the decision on what to prioritize, what to run with, what to pivot, what to change, or even just the emotions of like, I'm never going to get to all of this, and I kind of just have to deal with that?
Yeah, it's a internal struggle between Simon and I. I like to slow down. He likes to go double speed. And so often I have to go, so like, it's great that you want to like just roll out 5 new things. The team are going to crash. So can we roll out 1? And he's like, cool, I'll roll it out tomorrow. I'm like, no. We got to slow that rollout. And we've realized, well, hopefully he's realized after the last few rollouts that change management is actually quite important. And as much as both of us are wanting to do things quickly and it's easy and it's exciting, you need to take your team along for the journey, and you need to work with them. You need to get their buy-in, and you need to think through how you're going to get this, get the right success out of this change, which sounds weird, but how are you going to motivate people that this is the best thing they should ever do and they need to roll it out as quickly as possible, and it's gonna be amazing for them? You need to rally your troops, and I think we're still struggling figuring out how exactly to do that. But I think we've brought in somebody to chat to our managers to build some resilience and trust in our management layer. Because to be honest, if our management layer on board and are aligned, they see the rest of the team more regularly, and they're going to get the team on board. So I think it's about finding out who are the key people that you need to get on board, and how do you do that? And we've been doing a lot of conversations with, for example, our managers. This is what we want to do. What do you think? Like, are you good with that? Like, any ideas? And try and get their buy-in, because if we can get their buy-in, then they'll get their team to buy it.
Pete, I think I've got to solve to the problem if money wasn't a question, and this probably talks to our further issue, Cam, of revenue generating people versus non-revenue generating. If profitability wasn't a question, I would hire 2 or 3 people and I'd make an innovation and, improvement team, almost like your future team. And, how are we going to take this business forward and be like super dynamic and improving what we're doing, and have 3 or 4 people that are great at taking a conceptual idea, executing on it, rolling it out, putting the material together, much like a YouTuber has his team of 5 guys filming behind them or her, and everything gets packaged and uploaded the next day. A lot of us just think someone clicks buttons and videos pop up. There's a ton of work that happens behind the scenes. So the one thought process is we could just do that and the whole thing would happen. But I think that's a little bit naive, because that's not how businesses operate, and that's not realistic to think you can just throw a whole lot of costs at something and it's going to solve all the problems. So I think until we've solved that, we've got to evolve slowly towards what we want to kind of get to, or we need to just find the 10 people in this country who can afford to pay really big numbers for our services, and then we can do whatever we want.
So I have an idea in mind. Before I do so, I want to make sure that I've got one more question. Is the management layer that you have, right? Like, I'm even struggling with how to formulate this question, and I'll just think it out loud, and you'll help me with this. But it's basically what I'm trying to understand is, it's the big problem of handing over my customer to not just my operational team, but to my management team, and getting them to think like me, and them like understanding my customer, what they're looking for, showing this level of buy-in to what our products are. And it's like this desire to improve and this willingness to take that on and improve, not just deliver our value proposition, improve on it. And it's like, and my question / assumptions / thought is that if that was really handed over, would you be in the same kind of frustration of wanting this innovation function, or do you think it would really be well baked into your current structure?
Yeah, it probably could be solved in our current structure, Cam. I think one of the things we had a chat, me and Peter had this chat a couple of weeks ago, is we said how much of what we do on a daily basis, when I say we, I mean our whole team, and the quality that our team executes to, do our clients actually understand? So we put a lot of internal emphasis on we can do better. We can have really great accounting. It can be like perfectly done in the back end. And we can be doing 10 checks a month on your SARS compliance. And we can be adding all this value. And I'm using value in inverted commas because I'm saying perceived value. And in our minds, it's unbelievable. Like you're getting a polished diamond here. But the client doesn't see the diamond. They just see the light that's coming off the stone. And they don't realize that we're polishing every, few days. So I think we've realized that as much as it seems important to us, we need to be really intentional about what our client actually sees and values. And I think if we had a team that was owning that and building that out, I think you're probably right. I think the team would probably execute to a really good level. But then we've got the founder conundrum where me and Peter like to be responsible for creating new things the whole time. So we actually need to be pointed in a new direction to go and do something, because otherwise it's going to frustrate us that we don't get to create.
Peter, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I've already gone in a different direction and started creating things because there's a million things that one can solve. So I've already on a ChatGPT train building out integrated solutions with one of our payroll products, because I like to ideate. So I when I get annoyed with a product, like a software product, and I find out that it's got an API, I want to go, cool, like what can I pull out of that product that it doesn't already have as a feature? Can I make a feature that it doesn't currently have that will solve my problem? And I've realized I can. So for our payroll solution right now, it doesn't have the ability to have like practice dashboards, knowing how many companies there are, how many employees in each company, how many new employees from a company, and how many terminations. Has payroll been finalized? What's the quality of the payroll data? Are they missing tax numbers and missing bank details and a whole lot of? So you can get all that from the API. So I've built out a dashboard for myself, and there's a function called your IRP5s and MP501s, and it's annoying function where you have to verify every single company's data before you do it. So I've decided I've built a bulk verification that checks everything, because I don't know if it's actually, we've got no visibility. So for me, I'll find things to do if you give me freedom. And so long as it's not admin, I'll make sure I find lots of things to do.
Peter, what you've just highlighted for me and reinforced is that I don't think entrepreneurially-led businesses need an innovation function, because it's just the entrepreneurs. What those entrepreneurs need is the freedom to innovate. And like the big thing besides time in order to do so is really just that level of trust of, I know my customers are being taken care of, not just in present, but in like the near term 6 to 12 month future. Like I don't have to worry about my customer experience 6 to 12 months from now, because I know other people have got that handled and executing on it. That really gives me the space, because I mean, again, any innovation and proper R&D is like a multi-month process of testing, iterating before you bring it into operations. And that's why, we solve that, and then we're having fun as well as growing.
And that's actually a great point, Cam, because one of the things we have realized is that there's a number of our team members who execute work that I genuinely believe they do a better job at executing accounting work than me and Peter could, because their attention to detail and their approach to dealing with those problems is like on point.
I mean, it sounds like you've got the entire recipe, guys. What's holding you back from doing this?
We just need to write down the book, and then we're good. We just all the recipes are in our head. So we got our leadership team, which we didn't actually even tell you. We started a leadership team probably a year and a half ago, and we just pulled some of the key people in our business into a leadership team. Just because it's Simon and myself are the directors, we wanted to make sure that we had more people weighing in on things, and more people that are able to kind of execute at a different level. And that's been it's been really good. We sat down at the beginning of the year and said we wanted to jot down some long-term rocks, because it's always good to have rocks that you can build the business on. And one of them was around systematizing things. And initially we said, cool, we've got these, I think it's 6 rocks. Let's go and come up with stuff around the 6. And more recently, we said, let's actually focus in on 2 or 3 of those rocks for a period of time, and actually hone in on getting some really good momentum. And systematize is one of them. So we're looking to build a lot better assets around how we do things and what we do.
So guys, what you highlighted there, and I love the fact that you brought some long-term rocks, is you gave me the perfect segue to now transition the conversation into the future. But it's like the business it went from this proper change to now in this evolutionary phase that you're in terms of talking about the leadership level, the leadership structure. You've like downloaded your thinking into them, brought their thinking on board, thinking about the bigger picture, systemizing. You are looking at your customer experience, you're looking at innovation. It's all the things that come in the scaling journey. So I guess the one thing that I want to know now is just, what would you say that the rest of 2025 looks like to you, maybe 2026?
I think 2025 might be boring, because we need to systematize and document and set up some really good structures for moving forward. We have one of our other rocks is around going global. We believe that there's a big shift in the market in America and Europe around this lack of talent. And we're a country that have an incredible amount of talent, especially in this accounting space. And so we want to leverage what we've already built, our talent base, and actually just serve a different market, and being incredibly intentional about serving that market. Whereas historically, we've picked clients up just through word of mouth, but not through kind of focused efforts. Now we're wanting to really hyper-focus in on the European markets, starting off in the UK, because we really think there's a lot of opportunity there. There's we've spoken to a number of accountants and people in the market, and there really is a lack of accountants. So they're going to places like India, Philippines, and now Eastern Europe to get that talent. But we think South Africa's got a really solid opportunity. We're right time zone, great English speaking generation, and we're quality. So I think that's probably systematize and go global for me are the two key things. So
Get the platform ready and then shoot it to the moon.
Yeah, I think, Cam, like that idea of like it doesn't always need to be rocket ships that you kind of knocking sixes every ball. I think it's okay to play a test match innings when you've been around for 12 years, and you can play for the ones and twos. You can even block a few. So as much as it sounds boring, we are trying to play the the infinite game here. We're trying to be around later in the game. We both enjoy the ability to impact the way the industry operates. And we think a lot of the ways that the accounting industry has operated the last 20, 30 years is a bit broken, and the number of accountants who have burnout and stress and challenges in life is directly linked to the fact that accountants are overworked. And there definitely needs to be more focus on like sustainable support. That's probably why there's a lack of accountants in America and Europe, because kids are not that excited about moving into an industry where they're just going to grind you for a long time, and then they're going to offer you the opportunity to buy in as a partner for 10 million, which you don't have the money to afford, and the only way you're going to get the in there is to grind more. So I think it's not a very exciting opportunity. Whereas if I said to you, like, this is a dynamic space, you get to use technology, you can impact businesses, that's a lot more appealing to a young person coming into the world and having an opportunity. So I think change takes time. We've seen change in our business takes time. I think we need to be clear on where we're trying to go to, and without being boring, because we'll never be boring, but we need to be consistent and keep holding that line. And unfortunately, consistency in business also translates to money in the bank. So we need to do the right things over the next 6, 12, 18 months, 24 months that consistently mean we have money in the bank. Because if we have money in the bank, cash becomes easier, operations become easier, we get to be around longer, and we get to have more influence and more impact. You're not going to keep winning prizes and awards when you've been going for 15, 20 years, because they want to give it to the guy who just started out, the startup awards or the fastest moving. We can't grow 35, 40% every year now, because it's going to get unsustainable at some point. But, I just did the numbers, I think last week or the week before. What have we grown over the last few years? And it was like 25%, 22%, 23%. That's a lot of growth when we're not a startup when we've got 60 odd people in our team. So when you're growing big numbers like that, it's a lot of upheaval, and as much as me and Peter enjoy the challenge of, upheaval, every now and again, it's nice to just have a calm, things are calm. You don't have to be fighting a war on all fronts. You can just pick one or two areas where you want to roll out AI and improve your ChatGPT skill set. And the other 9 things can just work and tick over, and that definitely feels like how I'd like to see the next bit of time.
Well, the way that you explained it is both in the short term, there's a little bit of boring stuff that needs to be done, but it's unlocking the exciting stuff that you want to be doing. But guys, I think you've got not only an amazing business that but I think an amazing trajectory that you're on. And it's just so awesome to see the difference in the past couple of years in our conversations of like what would have been a vision a few years ago is now just a goal, right? In terms of where you're going, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I think what we've also got is this weird mixture of a business where we've got a division in Pretoria who's only been around for 2.5 years. So it's in a different life stage. We've got an advisory team, also similar life stage. We've got this automation department who's only got 4 or 5 people in it. we might have this big accounting business in Cape Town. We've also got three much smaller businesses that we're also needing to incubate and grow. So there's a lot of exciting stuff in those spaces. And then we're also doing some consulting business on the side in the marketing space. That's also very early stage. That's kind of internal marketing team doing some marketing consulting to clients, which is fun and exciting. So we've got, as Simon said, we've got lots of little businesses built into our bigger business, and we've got these big rocks that are more leaning towards the big business, but they impact all these little businesses in positive ways.
Look, I think regardless of what's going on here, and you've got multiple growth strategies on the go, so any of these are going to just bring a lot of excitement, but still a lot of complexity. But guys, what this is giving me a good recipe for is maybe in another 12 to 18 months, we'll do round 3 on the podcast and talk about the London expansion and how that's going. But gents, thank you for being on the Founder Files round 2. The last question that I have for you is simply, what is the one question that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you that you'd like to answer now?
How the family doing? I think I've got a 3.5-year-old, so it's been cool being a dad and a business owner, and making sure that I balance those two and give enough time to the family. So it's been interesting, and I've definitely needed to draw clear lines and make sure I look after those boundaries.
That's a whole nother podcast in itself.
From my side, Cam, I suppose I'd be asking, can a successful business owner or founder play lots of paddle and golf and still say that I'm working hard? And the answer is, of course you can.
Was that a question to you? Sorry, I forgot the fact that I asked you to ask a question, because I was like, that's an existential one that I think about all the time. And for me, it's the answer is the difference between being effective and being efficient. Right? You can be efficient as you like, but have no time for golf. But if you're being super effective, play as much golf as you like, your business can still move.
I think you've got to be happy and enjoying what you're doing, Cam. And if you can find time for paddle and golf along the way and still work hard and create great things, I think you're going to end the year on a much happier note than you would without adding those into the mix.
Boom. Mic drop. Gents, thank you very much for being on the Founder Files. This has been an epic conversation. Can't wait to see the expansion. Can't wait to play some golf. Can't wait to have another many epic conversations with you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Cam.
So Simon and Peter shared a pain point and a challenge that I'm sure is familiar to many of you. And it's this point where I really need to download my thinking out of my head and into my team, specifically my management team. And it's the question of how can I get them to think like me so I can really hand over and get the freedom to innovate, focus on the problems that I want to, and focus on the growth that I want to, or have more time for golf and paddle, or actually all of the above. And this is what we specifically solve for, right? It's like, as you can tell, these guys are super clear on how they want to grow their business. As I'm sure you watching this, you're clear on how you want to grow their business. But it's the roadmap that you need to unpack that, but also the download of what's in your head into your team. So not only they can buy into that roadmap, take it and run, but they can have this documented thinking around who your customer is, your market, what you want from them, what you want for them, what it is that your value proposition is, why they buy from you, why they keep coming back to you, and what are some of these principles around your customer experience that you really want taken care of so that you know you can trust your team with this over the short to medium term, maybe even the long term, as they handle your customers so that you can handle working on the business and the growth that you want to. That's what we solve. That's what we do, right? This tricky part of downloading what's in your head into a document, into a team, that's exactly what we do. Now, if you want to see how it is that we've done it for other people, don't just take my word for it. Click the link in this video below, and then you will see other case studies so you can see practically how it is that we did it for them. And it is possible that you can do it for yourself. So please have a look at those. Check out those case studies. It is possible. There's a process that we follow. That's a process that you can follow yourselves. Check that out, and you can see how it is that you can also download the thinking out of your head into your team, and you can scale with more freedom. Thank you for being here for another full episode of the Founder Files. As you know, I love this and enjoy this. I hope you do too. Thanks for dialing in. I'll check you next time. Cheers for now.